Hello guys, I am back with another adorable Halloween ornament for you. We're going to be doing this no-sew quilted bat. And one of the things that we love about this bat is that the bulk of his body is done with a basic star pattern. So if you've been around this channel for a while, you probably have seen this pattern. If not, please go check out my basic star workshop. It's very in-depth on how to do the pattern. Now I am going to be going through it, but I'll be doing it pretty quickly, and then we'll get to the additions, the things that make this the bat, which is the wings, the ears, and his cute little face. Now, in my last Halloween ornament video, I was telling you guys about how we have been expanding our Ornament Girls team lately, and we've got several new designers. This design is from another of our new designers. Her name is Tanya. So I'm very excited to be introducing you to her and for you to see all of the new stuff that we have coming from her and the rest of our design team here in the near future. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and talk about what you will need to make this. So everything that I'm about to list out for you is available on a downloadable PDF. You can find the link right below this video. This is printable, and also some of the links are even clickable. So if you want this, grab it at the link below, and this will give you everything that you'll need to make this. All right, so first things first, you're gonna need a 3-inch foam ball that has been marked into 8 equal segments. So normally we have these pre-marked balls in our Ornament Girls shop. Unfortunately, right now we are, just like most of the world, we're experiencing major supply shortages. So I don't have them available at the time I'm recording this. Hopefully very soon, guys. However, I've also got a video which will show you how to mark your own lines on a foam ball. We've even got a printable template to make it super simple. You'll find the link to that right below, and please don't be intimidated by doing that. It's very easy. Hopefully soon though, we will have these back in the shop. You're also going to need a bunch of fabric rectangles. So these are 2-inch by 3-inch, and I've got 42 of them. I'm using a shimmery black. This is by Cloud9, and it's Glimmer Solid in Graphite. Also in the same fabric, I've got 2 squares. These are 4 inches. And then also in the same fabric, I've got 2 more squares that are 3 inches. Last but not least, for fabric, you're going to need a band. This is about 2.5 inches wide by about 10.5 inches long. You'll need something for a hanger. So I'm just using a 1mm metallic string, and I've got about 10 inches. You can make this however long you want your hanger to be. Now for the fangs, this is actually just a sequin that we cut into pieces for each fang. So I've got about 11mm sparkly silver sequin here, and that's plenty big enough to cut it down into the 2 fangs. Thought that was such a cute idea from Tanya. Now I also used a couple of other sequins as well. We used one for the hanger and then one for inside of each of the ears to hold them on. And these are, I believe, about 5mm. You absolutely do not have to be exact about that size. Anything that you like will work, and really these are just kind of for decoration. We've got 2 pearl tipped pins for his eyes. And last but not least, you're going to need about 185 or so straight pins. And these are just regular size 17 dressmaker pins. So for tools, you're going to need a flexible tape measure and a pair of scissors. And that's it. Let's start. All right, so the basic star is just basically layering triangles. We're going to be doing the same fold almost the entire time to cover the ball. And we're going to start with 4 triangles in the center. This is where they're converging here in the middle. And then just work our way out until we have 3 layers. This is going to be a 3-layer basic star. Now, again, I know I mentioned this a couple minutes ago, but if you are unfamiliar with this pattern and you want a lot more in-depth instruction in the basic star pattern, then please just look at my other videos. I've got a couple that are super in-depth, and I'll take you through start to finish. But we're going to begin with one of our 2-inch by 3-inch rectangles of the fabric. And if you have a pattern on your fabric, you're going to be holding it with the pattern side facing away from you. And we're going to take the top edge and fold it over just a small amount, like maybe 3/8 of an inch or so. You do not have to be exact about this. And then you also want to find the center. You can eyeball this too, but if you want to be exact, you can fold it in half the other direction like this. Finger press that crease and then unfold it. And where that crease is your center. So I'm going to take a pin, and I'm pinning just a hair below the top folded edge right through the center. And now on the ball, of course, you've got all your lines on either half of your ball. All your lines are converging in the center. Those are the pole markings. Again, if you don't have a lined ball, we've got a video showing you how to draw your own lines on your ball, and it's very simple. But we're going to go ahead and take this and stick it right into the center, right where all those lines are converging, and press it flat down. And we want to aim this so that when we push it down, this top folded edge is somewhat in line with one of those lines on the foam. I turned my lights down a little bit, so hopefully you guys can see these lines here in the video. Okay, then we're gonna create a triangle by taking the left side, the fabric on the left, and folding it straight down, right alongside that pin, and in line with the line on the foam below. Then we're gonna take the right side and do the same, folding it down, and we're gonna just barely overlap the left side with the right side, just enough so that we can stick one pin through to hold both halves in place. But before we do that, we just wanna kind of make sure that this line that we've created is indeed sitting in line with the line on the foam below. So you can adjust this side to side until you get it where you want it. And then we're gonna take a pin down here at the bottom, pin it, and hold down both halves. Okay, so there is your first triangle. Not quite, we still have to pin down the edges, but it's a triangle shape. So now we're gonna smooth down the left side and pin that into place. And then the same with the right. Okay, so there is the first piece done. And all we're gonna be doing for this whole entire ornament is layering that exact fold over and over. So now we're gonna go directly opposite that first one with a second piece. So we're gonna fold it and prep it the same way, folding over that top edge a little bit, like 3/8 of an inch or so, pinning through the top center just a hair below the top folded edge. And now we want to sit this directly opposite the first triangle. We want its point to touch the point of the first triangle. So I'm going to take this and pin right up there in the center again, right where all those lines are converging, but making sure that my pin is touching the tip of that triangle. It's not going to pierce it because we don't want to overlap it. We just want to have it touch. So I'm going to press that, push it straight down in like that, and then create the triangle the same way, folding down the left side and the right side. Just overlapping the left side with the right side a little teeny bit. That way one pin can hold down both halves. And this line, again, is going to be in line with the line on the foam below. And now we're going to pin down those corners. All right, so we've got two pieces. I'm going to do the exact same thing now and fill in those two remaining foam gaps so that all four of these first pieces are in place. Letting my pin touch up there, touching both of those two tips now. When you go to pin down your left and right sides, they will overlap the fabric that you already have here, and that is totally fine. If you find that you're getting gaps in between where there's foam showing, check below. I'll put a link to another video I've got that will give you a few tips for avoiding foam gaps. All right, that's layer one. So the first four pieces of this second layer are all going to be directly over top of the first four pieces that we already did on layer one, except that our points are going to come back a little ways. We're not going to be pinning right into the center. We're going to be coming back a little ways from the center, actually about 1/2 of an inch. So again, we're starting directly over those triangles. So I'm going to just look at the point and then come down the center line of one of my triangles by about 1/2 of an inch and pin it in place there. And before you push it all the way down, you want to check with your tape measure and make sure that you're in the right spot. I am not. I came down a little too far, so I'm going to come up a little, about 1/2 of an inch. Again, this line that I'm pinning along is the center line of one of those first triangles. So press that flat down. This may be a little hard to see with this dark fabric. Hopefully you guys can get the idea. But we're going to take the left side down and then the right side, just like always. And again, we want to check the line on the foam below and make sure that everything is lining up, and then pin down both halves to hold them in place. Okay, and then just like before, we're going to do the left and right sides as well. Okay, so there is piece one of layer two. Now let's flip this over. We're going to do the exact same thing directly opposite. Okay, so this is my center point. Here's the piece I just put on. We're going to come down from the center point by 1/2 of an inch, just like we did on the previous piece. Just verifying that that's sitting about 1/2 of an inch from the center point. Pinning down both halves to hold them, and then pinning down the left and right sides. Now, this is an all one color basic star. It can get a little confusing if you haven't made a lot of these before. Something that you can do to help you not lose your spot is stick a pin. This is just, actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna use one of my eyeball pins. That'll be easier to see. You can stick your pin right into the center where all those first layer pieces are converging. It was the pole of your ball. You can stick a pin in there as a marker pin just to help you always see that this, whoops, this is the center. I was looking at the screen and not the ornament. So that's the center, and that'll help you keep your spot. So we're gonna do 2 more triangles on either side. Okay, so here's the pieces we just added, coming down 1/2 inch from that center. All right, and then 1 more to go directly opposite. All right, there's the first 4, but I had mentioned that layers 2 and 3 of this ornament have 8 pieces and not 4. So what we're gonna do is just put another point in between of each of those first 4 so that when we're done, we have a total of 8 pieces. And same thing as before, we're coming down by about 1/2 inch from that center point, except this time we're not going down the center line of a triangle below. We're actually sitting on a line between triangles below, which really is, you can't even really tell that now at this point, but you see you got these remaining 3 lines and those are all between triangles from the layer below. The reason why the lines are so important though, and I go over this really in detail in the Basic Star Workshop, is because you want to use those lines to keep all your layers as they radiate out really straight. If your lines don't stay straight, your ornament will end up looking really wonky by the time that you get all the layers done. And your side 2 will end up not matching your side 1, which makes things look kind of weird from the side. So I really always harp on keeping those lines straight, in line with the lines on the foam, and in line with each other. All right, that's piece 5. We're gonna go directly opposite that one to put the 6th piece. All right, and you guessed it, we're gonna do 7 and 8 in those last 2 remaining places. Alrighty, so that is layer 2. Layer 3 goes on exactly like we did layer 2, except for that we're going to be spacing them out just a little bit further from the center. And this time we're going to be putting them about 7/8 of an inch or so from the points of layer 2. Now, one thing I like to do with my Basic Star ornaments is you can see, like in layer 2, and hopefully you can see this, but there's those 8 pieces that we put on. 4 of them, the first 4, are mostly covered up by the last 4. You can tell which is which because the last 4, you can see the whole triangle, and the first 4 of that layer are mostly covered up. I like to make sure that when I start my next layer, like however many layers of a Basic Star that you're doing, that you always start your first 4 pieces over the first 4 from the previous layer. It just looks better in the end. I mean, like you could finish it without doing that, but it definitely looks nicer, neater, more polished, everything. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're like, I call them the inner pieces. I'm gonna make sure when I start layer 3 that I start with those pieces first. Now this time, again, I'm gonna be coming down, I think about 7/8 of an inch. The most important thing that you do here is if you come down 7/8 of an inch for your first piece, then do the same for the remaining pieces of the layer. That's really the most important thing with doing these this pattern. Okay, so let me go ahead and prep my fabric the exact same way as always. All right, and here's my center, of course. Here's my layer 2 pieces. I'm picking an inner piece. There's the point of that inner piece. I'm gonna come down its center line by about 7/8 of an inch. And I'm gonna grab my tape measure, measuring from that point. I hope you guys can see with this dark fabric. coming down about 7/8 of an inch down that center line. And that looks about right. I'm going to create my triangle. As always, just checking that my line is lining up with the foam, with the line on the foam, like that. All right, that's piece one. Now I'm going to go ahead and repeat that over the other remaining inner pieces of the last layer. So I don't know if you guys can see that little glint right there. That's a pinhead showing, and it's because I pinned way too close to the top of my fold. And then when I created my triangle, it didn't cover the pinhead. Okay, there's the first 4 pieces of layer 3. We're going to repeat that 4 more times between those pieces to complete this layer. And we're going to come down the same exact distance, about 7/8 of an inch from the points of layer 2, just to fill in those remaining sections. That's going to help hide all that ugliness between the triangles that we just added. So I'm between my previous 2 triangles. There's one. We'll repeat that 3 more times. You guys, that's it. So that's side 1. Now you may have noticed the bottoms of these pieces were starting to overlap that center equator line and going into the other side of the ball, and that is totally fine. So side 2 is done exactly the same way. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and do that, and then I will be back in a few minutes to show you where to go from there. All right, I just finished layer 3 of the second side, but I wanted to point something out to you. You're gonna notice that when you get to this last layer, and especially the final 4 pieces of that layer, that your fabric is gonna start to overlap into side 1. That's totally normal. What you want to be able to do is trim it. And so keep your pins in line with the center of the ball, even if that means you gotta pin up a little bit higher on your triangle than you normally would. That way you have all this excess that's below that pin line, and you can just lap it off and keep everything in a nice even pin line going around the center of the ball. All right, so now I've got one nice, pretty clean line going around the middle, and we're ready to go ahead and start adding his accessories. So before we add the wings, let's go ahead and give him his eyeballs, and this is going to help us with the placement of the wings. So what I liked to do here is aim for one of those outer triangles of layer 2. Remember we talked about the inner triangles and the outer triangles. I'm going to look, here's my layer 1, which is that center tiny star, and then here's layer 2, and I've got my inner triangles, and then I've got my outer triangles. Here is an outer triangle, and I'm going to just place the eyes right in that area, and I'm going to do one on either side of that center line. And then something that Tanya had done in her example one was she made the eyes like just a little bit like they're not perfectly in line, which I thought was pretty cute. So we're doing it again. So there is his eyeballs. Now let's go ahead and put his wings on. So we're going to be needing those squares for each wing, and we're going to be starting with the 4-inch square. I'm holding this on that diagonal, and if you've got a pattern on your fabric, you're going to want to hold it pattern side facing down. And I'm going to take the top corner and fold it down about 1.5 inches of the way down. Now this does not have to be exact, but just for reference here, this is what I mean. I folded it down to about 1.5 inches. And hold that in place with your hand. I'm just finger pressing that lightly, but the fabric I'm using doesn't hold a crease very well. Hopefully you're using like a cotton or quilting cotton or something that's easier to hold a crease. But holding that down, now I want to fold in the two top sides. Okay, so, and I want to fold them down like starting at about the halfway point right here, like the halfway point of the part that I folded down. Again, this does not have to be exact. We're kind of just creating nice clean edges on the sides for the wings. And I'm going to do the same on both sides. So now I've got a folded edge up both the left and right sides, and it's all coming to a point at the top. Okay, and then this line right here is just running somewhat centered down the middle. Now I'm going to take the whole thing and fold it in half, like this. So all you see up here is raw edges. And now we're going to set this aside for a second because we need to repeat it with the smaller square. Again, my fabric is not going to hold its shape very well, so I'm going to take a pen and just like hold it temporarily so that I can set it down, and we're going to repeat this with the other one. Now this one's smaller, so we don't want to fold over as much. I'm holding it on the same diagonal. I want to fold over that top point, this time like maybe 3/4 of an inch or so, maybe even an inch. Let me see what I got here. Okay, so I've got it folded down about an inch, and we're doing the same thing. We're going to fold over the top right side halfway in, and then the top left side halfway in. Finger pressing that really well, and then folding the whole thing in half. Just like that. Okay, this is going to be that little under layer of the wing. So now I'm going to remove my pin that's holding this one together once I got it with my hands. I've got both of these held and folded the same way. I want to tuck the smaller one up inside the larger one like this. And I really want to make all these corner pieces just sort of come together. Now from there, you can adjust this how you want. If you want this part to come out a little bit more, you can. Or if you just want to have it like this, you can do whatever you want here. So we want to place this so that all the folded edges are pointing towards us. And I've got this right side up, so his eyes are at the top here, just so I can get an idea of where this is going to be sitting. And I want to just sit this along all the raw edges of my wings, along that center line where all the raw edges and pins are on the actual ball. And you can look at this and just sort of envision where you want the wings to sit. Like, do you want them higher like he's flying? Do you want him to be kind of down like he's sitting? That's how I did this one. His wings are kind of lower so that he can just sort of sit there, and I like that. So we're going to aim for that same kind of placement. And just looking at it, you'll have to look at it from the front and just decide where you want these to sit. Once you have it, again, your raw edges are all going to be sitting in line with the raw edges of the basic star pattern. The wings are going forward, and we're going to take and make a line with our pins right along that same line from the ball. And I'm going to give it a couple extra pins down here at the bottom where I know that both parts of the wing are connected, because I want to make sure that this little part here doesn't fall out. So if you have to give it a couple extra pins, that's totally fine. All right, and there is wing number one. We're going to be covering this part out later with the band, so don't worry about that yet. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to repeat the process and create another wing with another set of squares on the opposite side. Okay, there are his two wings. So now we're going to go ahead and do his ears. So we're going to be doing each of the ears with those remaining two 2" by 3" rectangles. We're going to start just like the basic triangle fold by taking the top edge, folding it over, and then folding it in half again to find the center point. But we're not pinning through the top center. Instead, we're going to just like create the triangle without the pin. So I'm folding down the left side and then the right side, and just holding it with my hands like this, and then folding it in half like this. And we've got kind of almost like a little petal right here with a raw edge at the very bottom. So now we're going to take this and we're going to line its raw edge. Again, all the folded edges are going to be pointing forward towards the front of him where his eyes are. And we're going to be putting this up at the top with the raw edges aligned along the center line, just like we did with the wings. And you can look at it and decide where you want it to be. I like it to be almost at the top, but not quite, so it's not quite there. And then you'll see that the points here will start to overlap the wings a little bit, and that's totally fine. And we're gonna pin this on the same like we did with the wings, and just pin along the raw edge line with 3 or so pins, just like that. And you'll have a little ear, which it's all pointing forward right now. We're gonna fix that in a little bit. Let's repeat that with the opposite side. Okay, so there is ear number 2. So before we go and fix all of this up and fluff it out, we're gonna go ahead and do that band. That's gonna cover all those raw edges all the way around. So grab your long band of fabric. We're gonna be making this into a more narrow band by folding in one side almost in half, like folding it over about 2/3 of the way or so, and then folding it the other way almost in half again. So what you've ended up with is a more narrow band with a raw edge running down one side. It's hard to see in the video, but then the other side, there's no raw edges. And we're gonna flip this over so that the no raw edge side is face up. And then starting at the top between his ears, we're gonna lay this across those pins and right over top of the raw edges of one of his ears. And I'm gonna take a couple pins up here to hold it in place. And then I'm gonna carefully continue folding this and wrapping it around the bat and covering up all those raw edges and pins. It is very satisfying. Just cover them all up till you get to the top. Now, when you get to the top, you can do this one of two ways. You can either just stick another couple of pins in there and then cut off the excess, and then just have a couple of pins showing. Or if you don't want your pins to show, instead stick a couple of pins down lower, and you don't even have to push them in all the way. These are temporary. This is just to hold the band in place so you can let go. But when you get to the end here, just flip the raw end in over itself. I'm like not able to get a hold of this. So that those raw edges go inside, and then take a pin and go into the side in the little part that you flipped over and stick your pin in on an angle and push it down. Now you'll still be able to see the pin for a second. We'll take care of that in a minute. I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I'm afraid that this is hard to see. So right there is the little lip where I had folded that in. I'm going to just stick my pin down in there like this and then push it down on an angle like this, and it kind of crunched up the fabric a little, but all we have to do is just nudge it up over the pin like that, and we'll do the same thing over here. And now we have no pins showing, and we can go ahead and remove these 2 pins that we stuck over here. And I've got my fabric is shedding all over the place. Let's make this guy look like a bat. So his wings, you actually don't have to do much to. When you go to fold them back and just sort of like press along the edge of the band, they are big enough that they're gonna stay, especially depending on like your fabric. If you use the regular cotton fabric, it's gonna stay probably a lot better than mine is. But what we really need to help stand up here are the ears. So what I'm gonna do is take some of my smaller sequins, and I'm gonna stick a pin through my sequin, and then stand up your ear like this, and then stick a pin, oops, I'm off camera, stick a pin in here along the side and into the band like that, and now your ear will stand. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. There we go, now he's got ears, and we're gonna go ahead and take that last small sequin, I'm gonna stick another pin through it, and then we wanna grab our hanger. I'm just using a piece of string, but you could use a piece of ribbon or whatever. For the piece of string, I'm gonna tie a knot in the ends together like this, and I'm gonna stick that last sequined pin right through the knot. And then you can just stick this right into the top. There's my hanger, and we've got one last thing to do, and that is his little fangs. And all we're gonna do is cut this one larger sequin in half. I don't want to use those scissors. Oh, they're the only ones I have. Oh, don't tell anyone. I hate using my good scissors on something that's not fabric. Okay, so we're cutting this in half. Now you can see how we've got like a point and a point, but it's still, whoops, I just sent it flying across the table. And it's rounded. So we want to just like trim off a little bit of the rounded section and make it a little bit more triangle shaped. So I'm not going to cut off much, but I'm starting right at one of the points because I want to keep a really sharp point down there. Hopefully you guys can see this. And I'm cutting off a little teeny bit more so that I've got a point. And then we're just going to stick this right up inside that outer triangle, the same one that we stuck his eyeballs on. Now you can take a pin and just pin this on, and the pin will barely show up. Like when you're looking at it, like on the camera, it's probably really showing up. But if you don't like that, you could also just glue it on. You can just take a little dab of like clear tacky glue or whatever and then glue it on. And I like to do that. That makes me realize I never mentioned glue in the beginning of this. I am sorry, guys. Let's do the same with the other one. You can just actually tuck it up underneath of the triangle and it will stay, but some glue would probably help, or the pin. I need to make that pointier. Oh, now it's getting stuck up in there. We're performing surgery, guys. Dental surgery is happening right now on this bat. I just realized I can see like my sequin hole a tiny bit on this fang, but you know what? I'm gonna fix that later. He's a little quirky. So guys, that's pretty much it. I mean, he's pretty simple, right? So if you have any questions, as always, please put them in the comments below and we will help you out the best that we can. I really hope that you enjoy doing this, and if you did, please let us know in the comments. I want to know, and I'm sure that our new designer Tanya would love to hear how you like this. And one last thing, don't forget you can get this printable supply list at the link below. And if you want to go more in depth into the Basic Star workshop, that link is also below. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. Happy ornamenting.